Good morning, students. I hope you're all healthy and safe and you're able to understand everything that has been taught to you till now. Today, we will start with chapter 1 of your literature book, Adventure of the Blue Carbuncle by Arthur Conan Doyle. I'm sure you all must have heard the stories of the legendary detective Sherlock Holmes and his friend Watson. Well, this story is about Sherlock Holmes and how he solves the case of the theft of the blue carbuncle. But before we begin with the story, let's read about the author. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was born in Edinburgh, Scotland. He was a novelist and writer of detective and science fiction. His famous detective Sherlock Holmes and his friend Dr. Watson are immortal characters. Some of his works are A Study in Scarlet, The Sign of Four, The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, and The Hound of the Baskervilles. Now, let's begin with the story. I called on my friend Sherlock Holmes on the second morning after Christmas. He was sitting on the sofa in a brown dressing gown, holding a pipe with a pile of crumpled morning papers at hand. Beside the couch was a wooden chair. On the back of the chair hung a dirty, worn, hard felt hat. A lens and forceps lay upon the seat of the chair. Obviously, Holmes had hung the hat over the chair in order to examine it. So, this is the condition of Sherlock's room or Sherlock's place where he is right now. He is kind of trying to examine each and everything that he has found as an evidence. Now, the speaker says, "Perhaps I interrupt you." Now the Sherlock replies to that, "Not at all. I am glad to have a friend with whom I can discuss my results." "The matter is an ordinary one," he continued, "but there are some points of interest in it." I seated myself in his armchair and warmed my hands before his crackling fire. The speaker has made himself comfortable and he is all ears to what Sherlock has to say. And he guesses, although it looks very ordinary, a deadly story or crime must be linked to it. But Sherlock laughs at this statement. He says, "No, no crime," laughed Sherlock. "Let me tell you how the hat came here." And here he starts the story of how the hat came over there. It was 4 o'clock on Christmas morning, and Peterson, the commissioner, was walking home. A tallish man carrying a fat goose was walking ahead of him on the road. As he reached the end of the street, a little knot of rough men attacked the man with the goose. One of the hoodlums knocked off the tall man's hat as he aimed a blow at him. The tall man raised his stick to defend himself and swinging it over his head, smashed the top window behind him. Peterson rushed forward to protect the victim, but the man, frightened by Peterson's uniform, took to his heels. The roughs also ran away as Peterson approached. So Peterson was left with the fat goose and the battered hat that the tall man left behind. Here the term "took to his heels" means that he ran away. The man who was getting beaten up, he also ran away, and the people who were beating him up, they also ran away on seeing Peterson's uniform. Now Peterson wanted to give the goose back to the owner, but he faced a problem. He faced quite a problem. Mrs. Henry Baker was printed on a small card that was tied to the goose's left leg. Also, the hat does have the initials HB that have been inscribed on its lining. However, there are thousands of bakers in this city, and many hundreds of those are Henry Bakers. Peterson brought both hat and goose round to me on Christmas morning, as he knows such problems interest me. The goose we kept until this morning. When it seemed to be going bad, Peterson will have it cooked today. I thought that I'd keep the hat with me. Now, here the speaker asks Sherlock, "Did you advertise in the paper so that the owner can claim the hat?" To this, Sherlock replies, "No." Speaker asks, "Then how will you know who the owner is?" Sherlock very cleverly says, "We know what we can deduce from the hat." "But you are joking. I don't see what you can deduce from this battered hat." "Here is my lens. You know my methods. What can you gather about man who owns this hat?" Now the speaker took the tattered object in his hands and he is trying to examine it. He says, "I took the tattered object in my hands and turned it over rather ruefully. It was very ordinary black hat of the usual round shape, hard and much the worse for wear. The lining had been of red silk, but was a good deal discolored. There was no maker's name, but as Holmes had remarked, the initials HB were scrawled upon the side, upon one side. It was pierced in the brim for a hat securer, but the elastic was missing. For the rest, it was cracked, exceedingly dusty, and spotted in several places. Although there seemed to have been some attempt to hide the discolored patches by smearing them up with ink. Now, see, the condition of the hat is explained. It was in such a bad condition. The red silk that was used in the hat is now fully discolored. You cannot see the proper color of that silk, and there is no name of any brand, only the initials HB were written as remarked by Sherlock. And it was, pierced from the brim of hat securer. There is a hat securer, where elastic is tied to keep your hat in place, and on the brim of hat securer it was pierced and elastic was also missing. And for to make the matters worse, it was also cracked. The hat was cracked, the hat was exceedingly dusty, it was spotty in several places, there were spots all over. And to cover those spots or to cover those discolored patches, there was also some attempts made by the owner of the hat to smear them with ink. Smearing means coating, covering it. So that person even tried to coat them with ink. Now here the speaker says, "I can see nothing. Tell me what you have deduced from this hat." Holmes looked thoughtfully at the hat and said, "The man leads a sedentary life and is quite clever. He is middle aged and is not in good physical condition. His hair is grey and he puts lime cream in it. He was rich but is now no longer so." So this is what Sherlock has deduced from the owner, from the hat about its owner. Holmes had a few other such details about the man, and I was astounded. Now the speaker was astounded. He was surprised what other details were. Now the speaker, being surprised, says that, "I must be very stupid, Holmes, for I am quite unable to follow you. For example, how did you deduce that he is clever from his hat?" Now look at this. How can you point out that a person is clever by examining his hat? It is something that only Sherlock Holmes can do. You and me cannot do this. Okay. Now Sherlock replies to this one by saying, "Well, the hat is very large, so he must have some brains. How do you know he has grey hair and uses lime cream?" So here's another question that the speaker puts up, that how it can be deduced that that the owner has grey hair and he uses lime cream. Lime cream, I guess it's a sort of dye to dye your hair. And to this Sherlock Holmes reply There is some fine grey hair on the lining of the hat, therefore his hair must be grey. There is a fine whiff of lime from the hat, and so he must use lime cream. So there were two things which make made him deduce this. There is some fine gray hair on the lining of the hat. He could trace, he could pick out hair from the hat, and there was even smell of lime cream. He could even smell lime cream. So he deduced these things. Holmes had a logical explanation for each of his deduction, and speaker was once again impressed, and he said that he had logical explanation. While Sherlock Holmes and I were talking, Peterson rushed into the room. He showed us a beautiful blue diamond that his wife had found in the goose. Sherlock Holmes immediately recognized it as the beautiful gem that had recently been in the news. Now, Peterson, that is the commissioner, he comes rushing while the speaker and Sherlock Holmes were talking, and he has a beautiful blue diamond. And he showed it to them, and he said that his wife found it while wife was preparing the goose, while she was cooking the meat of the goose. Sherlock Holmes immediately recognized the diamond. He immediately recognized it because he recently saw it in the news that it was stolen. Holmes recalled reading about the theft. It had been stolen from Countess of Morcar while she was staying at the Hotel Cosmopolitan. Now he realizes that it was the same diamond that was stolen, and it belonged to the Countess of Morcar. A plumber who had come in to set something right in the room had been accused of the theft. And who was the thief, or who was believed to be the thief? A plumber who came to set something in the room of the countess. Ryder, an attendant at the hotel, had given evidence that he had shown the plumber in shortly before the stone went missing. Now, Ryder says that he was the one who showed the plumber way to get in just before the stone, right before the stone went missing. So, this was the only evidence that police had against the plumber. The countess was very fond of the gem and was offering £1,000 as a reward for its recovery. Now, since the countess was very fond of the gem, she was very it was very special to her. She was offering £1,000 as a reward for anyone who would find it. You see, Watson, our little deductions have suddenly assumed a much more important and less innocent aspect, said Holmes thoughtfully. The question for us to solve now is the sequence of events leading from a rifled jewel case at one end to the crop of a goose in Tottenham Court Road at the other. So now they were supposed to solve the sequence. Now they were supposed to solve the sequence that would lead them to link these two events. The two events were the rifle of the jewelry case. Rifle means theft of the jewelry case, and the other was crop of a goose in the Tottenham Court Road at the other. So these were the two events that they were supposed to now link. The first step Holmes took was to place the following advertisement in the papers. So he gave an advertisement in the newspapers, and what was that advertisement? Found at the corner of Gorge Street, a goose and a black felt hat. Mr. Henry Baker can have the same by applying at 6:30 this evening at 221B Baker Street. This brought Baker to Holmes, and after a little conversation, it became quite clear to us that he was innocent. So Holmes gave him a fine goose to replace the one he lost and sent him off very happy and contented. So here we can see that Mr. Baker the moment he read that advertisement in the newspaper, he came rushing to Sherlock Holmes, and they had a conversation. And with that conversation, it became clear that he was innocent. He was not involved in that theft. So what Holmes did was he just gave him a fine goose, because that goose was already cooked, or he it already went bad. And he gave him a fine goose, and he sent him off very happy and contented, because he was a simple man. Now, the next step was to trace the seller of the goose. Some questioning of Mr. Baker led us to the seller, Mr. Breckenridge. A little conversation with him, and we found Mr. Baker's goose for Christmas had come from a lady called Mrs. Oakshott from Brixton Road. As Holmes and I were making plans to contact Mrs. Oakshott, we heard a hubbub near Mr. Breckenridge. The goose seller was shaking his fists at a little rat faced man who was whining that the goose was his. Ha! This may save us a visit to Brixton Road, whispered Holmes, and went after the man. The man, it turned out, was Ryder, the hotel attendant. He was Mrs. Oakshott's brother. She bred geese for the table for her living, and had promised Ryder a fine goose for Christmas. Ryder, who had given evidence against the plumber, was the one who had stolen the gem. He went to see his sister with the gem in his pocket. He put it into the mouth of the goose. He thought that his sister had reserved for him to avoid being caught red-handed. Now here we can see what happened exactly. The man who was fighting with the goose seller was Ryder, that the hotel attendant, and he was actually Mrs. Oakshott's brother. What Who was Mrs. Oakshott? She was Ryder's sister, and she used to breed geese for the table for her living, and she has promised Ryder a fine goose for Christmas. Now Ryder stole the gem, or the blue carbuncle, and he went to see his sister with the gem in his pocket, and he was afraid to get caught. So what he did was he just put the diamond in goose mouth, and that goose he thought was reserved for him. However, he got the wrong goose, and the goose that had the gem got sold to Mr. Baker through Mr. Breckenridge. In despair, Ryder tried to recover the goose from Mr. Baker by having him waylaid by hoodlums. Now, hoodlums are gangsters or roughs, you can say. But as it happened, neither did Ryder get the goose nor did he recover the gem, because Mr. Peterson came by and frightened the roughs away and brought the goose to Holmes. So, this is how Mr. Ryder, that is the hotel attendant, was caught red handed in the end. And we think that he must have begged for mercy. He could have also asked to make a public apology to the plumber whom he wrongfully accused of theft. I hope you've all understood this story. And in case of any queries or questions, feel free to ask them via comments or via mailing me. Thank you for today. We'll meet in the next class. Till then, stay safe, stay home.